Welcome to another video. Today's video is about blue zones. You may have heard about this. So blue zones are specific places in the world where people live to a very old age in very good health. Now the question is, what do these places have in common and why do people live so well there? Now this is really work to Google. I think it's super interesting. The idea that there's places in the world where people seem to live longer than other places and also in better health, and you really wonder why. Is it something about the location? Is it something about the diet? Is it something about the way that people live and have, like, I suppose, just general tradition? So what it seems to me and what the research seems to be telling is about diet, but also about a stress-free life. So in there we have two things. The first thing, the diet, is they eat natural food. They don't eat processed food. They don't eat fast food. They don't eat food that comes out of a tin, or food that has lots of sugar, salts and saturated fats. The kind of food that has been kind of, I suppose, marketed at us over the last 50 years in the West and around the world in general. So what we can learn there really is to eat natural food. Eat things like apples, fruit, vegetables regularly. Make most of your diet more or less foods like this. So I already have a video on nutrition, a little bit about what I eat at the moment. You should go check it out if you want some ideas about, how you can change up your diet. But definitely more than 75% of what you eat should be natural food. And that way I believe you will have probably adding quite a few years onto your life. So you will have an increased lifespan if you eat only natural food and avoid processed foods. Because A, you're going to avoid obesity, and if you avoid obesity, you will avoid cardiovascular problems, and most people die from heart attacks or problems of the heart due to high cholesterol, etc. So if you can avoid obesity, you avoid heart problems, therefore you will prolong your life. Very basic fact there. But the other element of the blue zones, which is super interesting to me as someone who is interested in mindset, is that they have a comparatively stress-free life, as data would suggest. And this is based off people who've lived there in the last 100 years. Things are changing all over the world now with smartphones and the internet. But up till 20 years ago, these places were very rural, very isolated. There are places like island communities in Greece, island communities in Italy, Corsica, Sardinia, places like that. Also in Costa Rica and in Japan. So these are like hamlets, little villages where they grow their own food. They're self-sustainable a lot of the time. They have a lot of community, a lot of culture, but most importantly, they don't really stress too much over work. They don't spend all day crammed over themselves in an office typing like this. They're possibly working fields, yes, but the weather is very hot in the middle of the day, so they take siestas, they take it easy, and they kind of live day by day in a more relaxed fashion. Now, this is my stereotypical envisionment of what blue zones are like, but there is some data about the way they live as a lot less stressy life, and this kind of makes sense if you compare it to somewhere like New York, somewhere like London, where people are rushing around all day long, running to get a bus that'll be there. There'll be another bus in 5 minutes, but we're running, we're stressed, want to be there in time, don't ever want to be late 24/7, never really ends. Whereas these people have more of a relaxed, I suppose, peaceful existence. And this mindset, this kind of feeling of, everything will come in time, have patience, don't worry, we will get there in the end. This really seems to have a positive effect on lifespan and a positive effect on how you live your day to day. So I don't know too much about cortisol, but cortisol is the hormone, or maybe something slightly different, the molecule within the body that gets released when we are stressed. And you kind of want to avoid having cortisol high in you throughout the day. Now, if you have a short spike in cortisol, that's okay, because if it's like, say if you created this effect by going to a cold shower, you feel slightly stressed for a few minutes, and then for the rest of the day, when you're back in the normal temperature, you feel relaxed because of the comparison, because of the contrast, right? It's a little bit like if you're in a near-death experience, you feel like you're about to die, and then suddenly you don't die, you get this huge release of dopamine, and kind of, oh, thank goodness I'm alive, and it'll last for the rest of the day. With the cold shower, I mean, now, not with the life experience, that's just a theory, but I hope you get the idea. So you want this kind of feeling where you don't have cortisol high throughout the day, you're not stressed throughout the day, you're not thinking about things constantly in your brain that don't really matter. You want this kind of stress-free existence. Now, the question is, how can we implement that for ourselves? Now, I don't have a basic answer to this, but I do believe my channel is kind of trying to build up tools for how people can live a more stress-free existence. Naturally, as I've written in my book, which I need to make available again online, the Royle mindset, I talk about fundamentals first, then mindset. So you need your fundamentals in place. You need your basic health. Without your basic health, you're having a reasonably low body fat percentage, something that's within your BMI. If you're not too muscular, or if you have even better, have gained a lot of muscle, then that's even better for you. So that's a fundamental you need in place. Another fundamental is eating clean food, taking cold showers, getting outside a lot. These are fundamentals. With these in place, our body is regulated, and we can have a more, let's say, appropriate or normal balance of hormones, and a normal balance of how our body is functioning. If you have that in place, then mindset is an awful lot easier to achieve. Much harder to achieve if you're smoking cigarettes, if you're doing any substance abuse, if you're reliant on alcohol, because you're always reliant on a substance that's external to the normal function of the body, which naturally has only been around for a couple of hundred years, except for alcohol, of course, and tobacco has been around longer. But you're still relying on an external substance which we haven't really come to terms with, and which our body kind of suffers through, because you're essentially poisoning yourself all the time. And if you're poisoning yourself through something like tobacco or alcohol, then it's going to be very difficult to have your mindset as stable as it could have the potential to be. I always think it's very important not to compare yourself to other people, but compare yourself to the potential that you would have in a perfect scenario. This always comes to mind when I think of a smoker who has reached an old age and they're proud of saying, look, I've smoked all my life, I'm a chain smoker, I'm 80 and I'm like fine. But think of the potential that person has wasted. They've been poisoning themselves all those 80 years. They could have had a much better body, a much better frame, a much better life if they would have done the right things earlier on. Anyway, back to blue zones. How can we imitate these people? So, as I said before, diet seems quite straightforward to me. We live in the first world. We have all the food we could ever want, more food than a king would have had 100 years ago or ever exist in humanity. Food isn't the problem. You need to, food is accessible, probably even cheaper to buy normal food than to buy fast food over time. I definitely think that, you could probably, for a very poor family, they might need to rely on basic staple foods, but there are also natural foods, so that's perfectly fine. Now, what would be better than just eating bread and rice all day long is obviously to have vegetables and fruit, and for most people that's very affordable. So the food element, go research it, figure that out. I think it's super important. You need to know what you're eating, otherwise everything else can't really fall into place. Next thing is the mindset thing. How can you live a more stress-free existence? Well, as I said before, on the channel we have a lot of tools. We have the constant progression through life theory, which helps you sticking on course, believing in the process. We also have the lucky to be alive theory, which is allowing yourself to realize the beauty of life. So that's super important too. And with these two theories in mind, it's a lot easier to then look at your possible employment and think about, first of all, for privilege in life, you may look at your job and say that you hate it and that you don't like it. Well, when you realize how privileged you are to be alive, that job will become a little bit easier. But you also get the idea that maybe you need to be doing something that you really like or that you actually enjoy, and you can look around and see what options are available to you, because there always are options. This is something that my father used to tell me, that he wasn't aware of how easy it actually is to switch jobs if you have the mindset to do it, and you often get raises as well if you are building up a certain skill. So people often don't even consider this. The other side of that is the constant progression, that yes, you don't need to have everything right now, but over time you will accumulate it, whether that is improving your mindset, whether that is material wealth so you can support your family, whether that is physical health. So if you stick to the process, you will get there in the end. I really think you should research the blue zones, have a little look at them, try to understand them a little bit, and we can really learn a lot from these people. So yeah, that's the video. Hope you enjoyed it and have a good day. Goodbye.